Hey, LinkedIn, welcome to our first live demo day, Automation Ladies. If you haven't seen the show before, this is our LinkedIn series of different things that Allie and I want to do, some of which will make it into audio episodes for our podcast. If you'd like to listen to the podcast, you can check out our website, automationladies.io. It should also, at this point, probably be on iTunes and all those other places, but if you still can't find it, let me know. Thank you for joining us. We have been big fans and friends of Clarify for a while. They were one of the first people to reach out to us when we started Automation Ladies, just offering their support, asking how they can get involved, how they can help. Tor and his team, I got it reasonably close, I think. Ingrid, thumbs up to you if you're around. They've been fantastic to work with. Disclosure, they are one of our sponsors, but we are the ones that asked for this demo. They are not paying for it or anything like that. But we did get a demo from them a while back. And after that conversation, I thought to myself, wow, I wish I had recorded that so we could share with more people. So that's just kind of what we're doing here. Allie is with us this time from the start. Hey, Allie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I've had a very busy day of meetings and quotes and lots of stuff going on. How about yourself? Where you been at?
I was doing some commissioning, a very long commissioning job. I have months to go, but I got out early today, so.
Very glad you made it. So this is one of the caveats when you watch Automation Ladies. You may or may not get one or two of us. Allie has a lot of field work, and so sometimes she can't make it, but we're super happy to have her with us here today, especially because she's got some cool observations and questions, at least last time when we saw the demo of Clarify, that from a systems integrator's perspective is something that I would never know to ask. And then we'd love to welcome our special guest, CTO, and one of the early, if not co-founders of Clarify, but you can clarify that for us. Welcome, Tor-Inge, and maybe tell us a little bit as well how, if you actually speak your language, you would say your name.
Thanks, Nikki. You got it very, I think that went excellently. My name is, people usually just call me Tor. My full name is long and windy. It's Tor-Inge Eriksen. But Tor will do just fine. As you said, I'm CTO, and I've been here from the very beginning. It's actually we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. We've been doing this for years. Thanks.
That's awesome.
Very nice.
So can you, I guess this is the first question that we asked, I think last time, because we were having both an introductory call between ourselves and the demo, which we were hungry for. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of your company since you've been around for 10 years? I know it's kind of evolved, right? From you started out doing something different and then turned it sort of into a product. You know, one of the things that we care about when we look at technology is not just how cool is it and what problem is it going to solve, but like why? What drove you to invest your time and energy and commitment into bringing this to market? And, you know, what's behind it for you guys?
Well, that's a really good question. So you're right. We started 10 years ago as a consulting firm, basically, and we were doing most anything with industrial automation, but it ended up over the years being more and more data acquisition and time series analytics. So doing that, we basically ran into a couple of issues that just kept coming up over and over and over again. And then about halfway in, like 5-6 years in, we had a rough idea of a product, and we found some early customers. And then from there, it kind of evolved into what Clarify is today. So it really comes from kind of our hands-on experience and frustration with the existing workflows and existing tooling. So today we're not doing consulting, we're a product company. When we started, there were 4 of us. Today we are 22 full-time employees. There's some part-timers as well, but we're a good-sized team now. So a lot has happened in the 10 years since we started.
Yeah, I feel like employee headcount is not necessarily the same metric that it used to be. because with the flexible economy and remote and contract workers, like a lot of people prefer to be contract because they have their own business. They like to specialize in doing something. They like working with multiple companies. It doesn't necessarily, like, to me, the whole contract employee thing used to kind of be an exploitive, like, oh, we're not going to give you benefits or hire you on. But what we're finding as we grow at QuoteBeam as well is that there's, it's on both sides. We have some people that really prefer to be contractors because they have their own business. They like to have their own independence, but they really add a lot of value to our, organization. And then there's also flexibility in terms of you have some certain projects that need to get done. We see this a lot in automation, right, Ali? I mean, in terms of there are industrial controls engineers that, do contract work as well as, the W-2. And I have heard, I'm trying to unmute you. I muted you because your background noise was kind of noisy, but I'm trying to unmute you and it's not working. Can you unmute yourself, Ali? Oh, there. Let me see. Unmute. There. No? Are you still muted? I'm pressing the button for unmute. Can't unmute your guests because they chose to mute themselves. Okay. Well, you are now in control, I believe. So this is one of the hallmarks of an Automation Ladies live stream.
I got it.
We got to go wrong somewhere, or it wouldn't be an Automation Ladies event, wouldn't it? There you go, Ali. What would you say about the role of contract roles when it comes to the world of controls engineers?
Well, even before I was, doing this, what I'm doing now, which is my own integration firm, as like a W-2 controls engineer, like it was very normal to hear of, oh, yeah, these people are subcontracting for these people. So it's a huge mesh of contractors and W. It's really about the people themselves. Preferences.
Right.
Did you lose me?
No, I can hear you.
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
So anyway, not to go off on a huge tangent here, but I just wanted to point that out about the headcount size. I don't really look at that anymore and go, oh, you only have this many full-time employees, so that means that you're, either too small or whatever that is. Interestingly enough, one of our team members, Liza, hey Liza, if you're watching, she is over in the Philippines, and it's way less common for there to be any kind of contract workers when it comes to engineering, process and controls in particular. She said that they're pretty much all on the W-2 side. So it's interesting that that's a little bit of a regional difference, but it's definitely very common here in the US. Toor, how is that over in your neck of the woods? Is that common on the engineering side as well?
To an extent on the engineering side, for sure, but then in kind of software, it's very common, especially for kind of more specialized roles where there's people who are they want to do one thing really well, and there isn't quite enough work kind of in one company to keep doing that. So I think if you want to go, especially in kind of smaller markets, it makes sense to then just work for multiple clients. So we definitely see a ton of that. We hire people in contracting positions to do very specialized tasks. But then in addition, one thing that we've found is that we work a lot with companies that provide services or products that are complementary to ours. So instead of having one giant company delivering one package, we will work with other people who are really good in their field, or companies who are really good for specific things, and we'll make sure that our software works well with theirs. So we can keep our focus on being good at what we want to specialize in, but being able to deliver to our customers a full package by working with others who kind of fill out the bits that we don't do.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a very much, to me, a vision of the future. And I've read some things backing this up from other people as well. But on the flexibility of work and sort of looking at more so your work network, your talent network. And then being able to work with that network in the right partnerships can be, I think, is a much more sustainable way of looking forward of how we can do the right work in the right place, for the right clients, versus just having to have everything under one brand or one organization, where you're going to do the core of your business maybe very well, but then kind of, how far are you stretching yourself in doing everything that isn't really your core expertise? I would love to show some of our comments. Hey, Vlad. Thanks for joining us. We also have Hank, one of our favorites, who's got his junior board of directors. Hey, girls. Love to see you. Thank you for joining us. But this really speaks to, and the reason we do sometimes go off on tangents or step up on our little soapbox and say our stuff while we really, we're interviewing other people. But I think this really ties into why Clarify as a product is so important and so cool, because you're really finding a way for everybody to collaborate together, even if it's not all under one roof, W-2 on-site, employees, which is the sort of the use case that that piqued our interest when we saw you present the first time. So just kind of wanted to tie that together. I think that every industry is changing with remote work and contract work and more flexibility. And in order to get more people to want to work for us, we have to offer these options. And so how do we collaborate safely, securely, keep a team? So we're a fully remote team at QuoteBeam, and we just instituted a thing on Slack. It's a random coffee. So every week, the bot chooses 2 people from the company that have coffee together. And we got to think, what are the new ways that we can, we don't have a water cooler, right, where we all congregate. So how do we work together in this new environment? And whether you're a software company or a manufacturer, there's a lot of changes and a lot of cool things that we can do now that we used to not be able to, in order to be able to fulfill kind of the workforce needs and things like that. So when did you actually launch the product versus, you have 10 years of history as a company, you started out consulting. When did Clarify as a product get born?
So we've been running it with kind of pilot customers for, I want to say, 4 years now. But we launched it publicly where anyone could download it. COVID has really messed with my sense of time. Like, there's a good chunk of time that just makes it really hard for me to say like exactly how long it's been. But we launched about 18 months ago. We made it kind of our self-service, publicly available. Anyone can download it. Software. Before that, we've been running it in production with customers for a long time, but it was never available to kind of anyone. And that's part of what we wanted to do, is to lower we were trying to bring data to more people inside the companies that we work with, but we also want to make sure that basically more companies can access it by just being transparent about pricing, being transparent about what the product is, and making it possible for people to just sign up and start using it.
That is one of my favorite things as well. I'm a big fan of, product-led growth, not gating too much information. Customers want to know what they want to know before they choose what to buy at this point. And I think in our industry, it's been slower to adopt. I think a lot of people think that they're such complex products that you need somebody to walk you through and, all that kind of stuff, which I think in some cases is still correct. But personally, it bugs me to not be able to find out information that I want until I go through, a level of qualification that would drive anybody crazy. And especially the younger engineers, those of us kind of are used to self-service, buying online. I'm going to gravitate to anything that gives me a shot at trying out, even if it's less features or a free trial, something like that. It definitely impacts how I choose what technologies I want to use. And I'm sure that that's going to make a bigger impact going forward in our industry as things change. It looks like Ali dropped out. She's probably, I think her Wi-Fi or something is not great. So we'll see when she comes back here. Does anybody, if you're watching, ask any questions you have before we get started on the demo? If there's anything that you'd like Tor or myself or Ali to answer, or something in particular that you want to see, otherwise, we could probably just launch into the demo unless there's something else that you would want to discuss. Although now I just thought of another question. So one of the things that impressed me when we talked last time is the makeup of your team. And I don't remember specifically how intentional you were about that, but can you tell me a little bit about the makeup of your team? Is it pretty diverse, or is that something that you've had in mind and done on purpose as you've grown?
No, for sure. It's I think in a sense we were kind of lucky with some of the first hires in terms of we had some female developers. I think that's really helped in attracting more. I think it's hard to come into a company and being the first. So just having some, I think, really helped in recruiting more. The other part we've done was we chose kind of early on that we'd use English as a working language, and we've hired. I don't really want to say that we haven't really gone out of our way to hire people from different nationalities, but we've hired the best people for the job, and they have just ended up being from different nationalities. But we try to have kind of perks and setups in a company that makes it easier or possible for people from different backgrounds to choose us. Like, just we all speak English. If you want to take an extended vacation, which some of our employees really like the ability to, they work from here at times, and then they might travel back home to work at times because it's inconvenient to go from Trondheim to Colombia for a weekend. So you want to go for 3 weeks, and there's basically no reason why we wouldn't allow that. So we have 12 different nationalities in the company now. About half of our company at this point is actually a bit more than half is non-Norwegian, and it's a diverse group of people from kind of all over the place. There's some Europeans, there's parts of Asia, North and South America. It's kind of it's a diverse group of people, which is a lot of fun.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Both, and it's great from a customer standpoint. You kind of have more internal perspectives on maybe what your international customers are doing and how they communicate and so on. But then also gives you access to talent, right, worldwide, that maybe if you were only trying to recruit locally, it would be harder. And then, I would totally agree with you. Starting with it early, it also really helps because representation matters a lot. When I'm applying for a company, if I don't, if I see all of one type of person on the leadership page or whatever, and they don't look like me, then how do I exactly picture myself in that position or in that organization? So, all right, Allie. She just muted herself. I was about to ask you a question. That's okay. Do you have any other questions before we start the demo? You're still muted, Allie. You're still muted, Allie. You have to unmute yourself, Allie. What button are you pressing? I don't know. Oh, I guess her connection must be bad. So anyway, let's just proceed. Why don't we? She'll probably jump back in and have something to say once you get started. So I'm going to go ahead and add the screen to the stream here. And welcome to the first live demo of a product on Automation Ladies. We are so excited about this. This is not meant to be a sales tool or anything, but the thing is, we all buy stuff, right? We don't like to be sold to, but we want to see what's out there. And this is this is the reason that Allie and I decided to do demo days, because both of us have this intense curiosity about what's out there. Allie actually uses a lot of these things. She, implements things, but she doesn't want to, she doesn't have the time to engage with everybody in some long sales cycle, meetings, when she's not available, right? So the more of this information that's out there that people can see, to see if it may be a fit for you, that's what we want to do this for, so that somebody might see this demo now or down the line. And if it hits a chord with you or something, then, easy. You can go to clarify.io. You can get started for free, or you can contact one of their people to answer whatever questions came up that, you thought of because you saw this demo. So, hey, welcome back, Allie.
Hey, maybe this is better. I'm hoping that I'm using a different connection this time.
Okay.
And it sounds like I'm kind of staying connected, but my first impression when I saw this the first time was it reminded me of like a really collaborative I'm used to like OSI Pi for databases. So I would like go and take snapshots of like data events and to show to people, and this is just like how you do that on steroids. It's just such a better system that I've seen. So that's kind of why it struck a chord with me.
Cool. So if anybody that's watching this, you see the demo, speak up if any of this strikes a chord with you, or if this, if you have a story to share that, this is how we used to do this. I can probably think of a few when it comes to this sort of data, right? And what happens. But yeah, let's dive into it.
Okay. So good. In Clarify, I've set up two kind of demo setups in here. So I have this organization here named Automation Ladies Demo. I put in some data actually from my house, just because I know that really well. It's measurements from where I live. I'm going to use that to try to explain what it is that we're trying to solve with Clarify. I'll show you what we can learn from the data, and then I'll hopefully get into the bit where we reach the end of what we can get from just looking at the data, and why we think that collaborating with your colleagues and coworkers and externals, basically people who know other things than you, why that makes a ton of sense when you're looking at time series data. So how about we just take a look in here? This is Clarify, kind of front page. What we see, it says activity here, and there's no activity because this, I just set this up for this demo. I've added some data. We'll find it here inside of items. And this is, if you've ever seen a tag list, this is it. So I put in not that many tags. Got the electricity prices, and some current measurements from my electric setup. I have some measurements here: humidity, noise, pressure. I'll show you what these contain. So I can click, for example, let's click the temperature measurement from inside my house. So
how did you connect this data from the thermometer to here? Using what?
Excellent question. So Clarify is entirely like neutral in what systems we can get data from. So for my specific setup, I'm pushing data using Node-RED from my from a couple different sensors inside my house to Clarify. But our customers connect data from OPC UA via MQTT. We have Sparkplug support. There's kind of SDKs and APIs, and there's a ton of different ways to connect data to Clarify. And that's because very often what we see with customers is that there's a lot of value in being able to visualize different kinds of data. So Ali, I heard you saying OSIsoft Pi, and I've spent some time there as well. And also in some vendor-specific systems, what you often find is there is some data, but not all the data. So for example, you'd find electricity consumption, but you wouldn't find price because that's coming from some third-party API out in the cloud somewhere, and that can't be, or it's very hard to get into your system. And what we found is that very often if you're wanting to analyze your data because you want to learn something from it, you often require data from different systems. So just having them available in one system is kind of value in and of itself. So since we're talking about that, this is a tag list. I can pull up any one of these kind of tags, or as we call them, items here, but that just lets me see one and one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what we call a timeline, which will let me visualize more of them at the same time. So I'm just going to press the button down here. It says new timeline, and we're off. I'm going to close this side menu just to give a bit more space for the demo. And I'm going to start by pulling in the electricity consumption. So that's electricity consumed in my house by the hour. And if you look at it, like just basically looking at it, like what can we learn? So one is I have an electric car. These peaks, that's me charging the car. And you can see kind of here's the base level load. And then you can see there was an area here where it was flat. That means I wasn't home. So I know that because I live in this house, but you can also see it from data. So if we're looking at this electricity consumption and we're wondering what the heck happened in this period, you might want to pull in some other data. And so I'll just press this button again, add an item, and I'm going to pull up. So I have a noise sensor in my living room. And I have 2 kids, which means that if we are home, it is not going to be quiet.
Right.
So you kind of see that just by looking at it, that there's likely some kind of correlation here, right? There's lower noise when we are away. And this is just one of the things that you can kind of see in Clever just by looking at data kind of side by side. And you can pull kind of any number of metrics or items, as we call them, into this one. So if I now wanted to add on, so I got noise and I have electricity consumption, I might also want to pull in the price of electricity. So I could take that and I could, for example, I could drop it on top of this one here, and I get both in the same graph. And then you can customize your timeline. So just to make it look a bit nicer, I'll give a name to this graph here, and give these a bit shorter names. I think I want the consumption to be maybe yellow and price to be, let's go with some shade of purple or pink. And then the noise level, let's call this noise here as well. Let's make that greenish. Okay, so looking a bit better. I could give a name to my timeline now if I'm gonna at a point where I want to remember what I put into it. So let's do electricity analysis. So I'm on my own, I'm doing this. I see this correlation. Maybe I want to share it with someone. So I could share it. In this organization, I've added one kind of demo user named him Bob. I could invite Bob, and I can control basically what others can do in it. So let's say I don't want anyone to mess with my timelines. I'm just going to make him a viewer. So now we're multiple people. We can look at the same analysis. It's not a dashboard or a report. So as data comes in, it will just update. It will constantly have new data. So we're always looking at the freshest version of it. You'll notice on the price, it actually goes into the future because we get prices ahead of time. So I know the price of electricity 24 hours ahead. Now, if I want to make this easier for someone else to understand, there's some things I can do with the data. So I'm going to show you guys one kind of neat trick that you can do in Clarify. That's one of my favorite. I mean, I have a lot of favorite features because I've been close to this for so long, but this one I think is pretty neat. So if we look at the noise here, I know that I was away, and I can find a way to communicate that with someone else and also just make it easier for me to visualize. So I know we were home for, today and yesterday. So what I can do is I'm going to mark today, and I'm going to press this button up here to get statistics. And I'm going to go to noise, and you'll see the average was a bit shy of 40 decibel, and the maximum was 59. If I look at that yesterday, it was 63 was the max. On Sunday, it was 56. But if I go into one of the dates kind of in the week that went by where we went here, you'll see the maximum was 47. And I've looked at this a bit before the setup, so I know that anything above 50 decibel, we're at home. Anything below, there's no chance that my kids were at home at least. So
yeah,
what I'm going to do is I can I can kind of save that information in the system. So I'm going to press this button again, and I'm going to open this, which is this menu here. What we're seeing now is kind of the user-facing bit of Clarify, and I wanted to show you the kind of what's behind the scenes, what's available to a system integrator, basically. So if you're with a client and you want to kind of save this knowledge, I'm going to press this, and I'm going to go to items. So that's, in another system, would be kind of tags or metrics. And what you can do in Clarify is, much like in an Excel spreadsheet, you can create formulas. And you can create formulas that are A plus B, but you can also create formulas that are kind of logic based. So I'm going to press this button, press calculate item. I'm going to add one variable to it, which is noise. I'm just going to say that. So I'm going to name my variable noise to make it a bit easier to read. If noise is higher than 50, then I want it to be 1. If not, I want it to be 0. So we'll have ones and zeros, basically, if the noise was higher than 50. I'll save it. I'll do one more. So I'll do not the average of noise, but the sum of noise per. And I'll actually do it per 24 hours. So we had for a full day, basically, if we were home that day or not. I'll just name the whole thing. Let's do it at home. And I'll do one final trick, which is to say that I don't want it to be 1 or 0. I want it to have a state. So if it's 1, I want it to say, yes, we were home. And if it's not, I want to say, no, we weren't home. And that, just going to make it visible. And I'm going to go back to Clarify. So I have my timeline called electricity analysis. And if I press the button to view all my items, I will find the at home variable here. I can drag and drop it in. And it will. Well, now it just says yes all over. So
what about when you're home but you're sleeping?
Well, if we're sleeping for 24 hours, something's gone horribly wrong. But let me just see if I can.
So because you're averaging it over the 24 hours, then
max, not the sum. Oh, there we go. So I'm doing the max per 24 hours. So
okay, yeah.
It's so incredibly customizable.
Yeah, you can do
nothing is this customizable.
And so quickly. I mean, I don't know how hard these other systems are to work with, Ali, because I haven't really done this in an industrial setting.
They're meant to make it simple, but they only connect to one type of data. They don't do this, where they're like welcoming all of your data streams like this. That's not normal. Like, it's wonderful.
I'm glad to hear that. Part of what we're trying to do is to make these kinds of things available to more people. And in order to do that, we just want to make it simpler to do it. So I've now taken the graph here, the greenish one, and we've made it a status. So on the bottom, it now says that we were, in fact, not at home for this week. Now we're at the end of what I think kind of we can just get from the data. And this is where the collaboration part gets in. So I know that I wasn't at home, but I have no idea why just looking at this, unless it was in fact me. So what you can do in Clarify, which is both something you can do kind of analyzing data like now looking back at it, but maybe better is when you do it when things happen. So for this period, I know that we were in fact away on holiday. So I'm just going to mark that period. You'll see that pops up a box on the bottom here. It says from October 8th. And let me just get that to fill the full day. And we'll, on the end of it, we'll drag it until here. And I will add a comment. And so now I'm adding context to it in terms of text. And that's neat for kind of historical reasons. If we're going back and wondering why did the machine stop working in this period, someone might have snapped an image of it and added a comment or said that it's taken down for maintenance, so we can kind of differentiate planned downtime from unplanned downtime.
And that's context saved forever. Whereas I could send an email with a snapshot, but anyone else who looked at the data will never know what I talked about.
No, so that's a very good point, and I'll jump over to the other organization because this one is kind of fresh and clean, and I have nothing in it from before, so it'll just contain kind of what we have in here. So any comments I want in here, I'll have to start adding. But we have another organization that we've added context to over time. So I'm going to switch to that one, which has a lot more things set up. So I'm going to go over to my other organization, and you'll see here that we're still on the activity page, but now there's suddenly a lot of activity, and that's going to be text. It's going to be images. There's kind of conversations going on, and I have some timelines already set up. So I'm going to open up the timeline here called Power Management. And this shows what it looks like when you've been using Clarify for a while. So in this timeline, I have data. So I've got some winding temperatures, gas output temperature. Basically, you can have whatever data you want that you have in your system. But now we also have comments. And the comments are either on a point in time, or they're talking about a range of time. So if I scroll back here, you'll have a kind of a history of all the things that happened to this data. And when you get to things like this, it's an example we very often use because it actually happens so often with our customers. There's no data, but why? So from the data, we can tell that there's no data, but that the story kind of just stops there. So what you can do in Clarify is you can say why. And analyzing the data and understanding what happened and trying to optimize kind of future production runs or optimizing the way you use your assets is a lot easier when you understand kind of what happened. And you can only get so much of that from the data. I mean, Ali, you probably encountered this often where there's a plot somewhere on your time series or your historian, but no one knows why there's a spike or why it stopped sending.
Sometimes, depending on the settings, it will just be a point that will not change, that has always been changing. And you're like, okay, something's happening because they're just flatlining.
Yeah. I've seen that a ton, right? And so what you can do in here is, I mean, these are pretty basic things. You can add a comment, you can add a picture and video and documents, and you can mention your colleagues so they get a push notification. It's all kind of things we're expecting from other software.
Yeah.
It's just not in industrial software for some reason.
I was about to say, Ali, when that happens to you, what do you do? Like, when you see that in the historian, like, what do you have to do to try to figure it out?
Well, we have to go troubleshoot. And yeah, there's lots of emails and lots of snapshots taken, and really, like, we can't note it back into the system like why it happened, but if you were there or you know where the report is, then you get to know what happened. So this is kind of just like changing that completely so that, like, no one can ever not know what was reported on here because it's all together. Like that's the whole point of this, and it's not the way we're used to doing things, not because we didn't want to do that, just because there wasn't a means to do it all together like this. Especially different data streams. It's just like, so it's nice.
Yeah, so my dad has a system that runs in grocery stores that monitors the conditions, mainly the temperature of their freezers and fridges and stuff. And what we built is a way for the refrigeration service companies, who are the ones that come service the compressors and the freezers, things like that, for them to be able to look at this data, and for us to start to learn what does a compressor failure look like, or some other things. So we note the data. And I feel like, this is an ongoing thing for like 10 years, but the notations are not necessarily visible to everyone. Like we've collected them kind of in a different place, and we have these case studies and show, this is what the time series data looks like for what leads up to a compressor failure. They've been able to, like the service company, they love it because they don't have to show up blind with hopefully the right tools, hopefully the right spare part. They have a much, much better idea of what is going on before they ever show up on site. And they can do things like preventative maintenance much easier. For a while, I was like, well, it's not really doing anything that cool. It's not AI. It's not predictive maintenance. It's not telling the service person what they should do and when and what part to bring. But honestly, like that's not, I mean, yeah, I'm sure that would be great. And one day, we'll get there. But just having an overview of knowing how to read this data, having it be accessible, and then basically they have somebody kind of at headquarters that will communicate, who schedules the different maintenance people. They now have a very good idea of what all these things look like. And they've saved so much in response time and being able to bring kind of the right service call at the right time, instead of wasting time with showing up and diagnosing the problem and then going back to get the right spare parts and then showing up for another call, maybe driving back and forth or having to, schedule this in over a series of days. They're much, much more prepared with the right thing at the right time. And that's basically just looking at the basics, the temperature data, and having the context of understanding what is like a defrost cycle. It's not just alarm. It's all of a sudden too hot. So you have to understand the context of these different things that the systems are used to doing. But I love the idea of like, if we had a way for the technicians to notate, okay, I noticed this in the data. I came out in the service call. It was actually this. This is what I did. I feel like that's a much quicker way as well to train that kind of historical knowledge. Let's say that technician leaves. How does the next person learn what that looks like in the data in the absence of an AI like spoon feeding it to them, right? I feel like this is the perfect thing for that, is they can always look back at this and everybody's collective knowledge builds up that you can always go back and reference and like train new people on and those sorts of things.
I actually want to show you something because I really like that case. I think it's a really good, it's a really good point that very often we're looking for these kind of fancy AI solutions to things that we could in reality kind of solve at a simple level. But there are some cases where it actually does make sense to kind of build upon that. And in those cases, I think, like going back to what we talked about earlier with kind of different teams doing different things and having some people on site and some people remote, a very common setup that we see is that the people who are on site, who knows the most about the process, so in your case, who understands what a compressor failure looks like and who understands that this time it was a compressor failure, that other time it was a power outage. Getting that context to the people who are capable of doing kind of the data science bit of it can be tricky. And that's one of the use cases that we've found for Clarify is combining kind of on-site field side knowledge of the system with people who can do data analytics. And then in Clarify, if you had tagged all your compressor failures, if you now wanted to actually do preventative maintenance, or you wanted to be alerted if there was an oncoming compressor failure, Clarify is not an end destination for your data. So you can put data in here, and then I can click on this. I'm just going to use this consumption metric here as an example. I'm going to press it. And on the very bottom here, there's a button here called Open in Jupyter Notebook. So
nice.
You can use Clarify as a starting point to do kind of more complex data science pipelines. And we have a lot of different examples for doing that. So I'm just going to scroll all the way to the bottom here to show you something. So one of the things that we do with customers is pattern recognition. So when you have patterns, when you identify the patterns that you're interested in based on just getting feedback from the people who are working close with the machinery, someone with a data science background can capture those patterns from the data that's in Clarify, and you can actually write the results back into Clarify. So instead of my naive, are we at home variable on the bottom here that says no if the maximum noise is less than 50 decibels, and yes if it's more, you could create something far more advanced and spot patterns in the data. And then you could be notified when something's about to go wrong. So it really isn't kind of what we're looking at here is just, these are the things that's easy to do. These are the things you could be up and running with inside of an hour, basically. But you could very easily expand that to doing just more and more complicated steps, or not complicated, but kind of more advanced tasks. And our goal with all of this is to not make it complicated, right? And also to have the data that results in it not end up in 3, 4, 5 different systems, but to have it all kind of brought back and presented in front of the people who need access to the data.
That's genius, because usually that data, if it's being processed for data science people, it never sits in a place that's accessible.
No.
Also, the way that it's collected is not always the way that it's supposed to be presented to be able to do machine learning, right? So you need to do like database transformations or different things like that to have the data be in the right format for the data scientists to look at, and it's generally not the same format that other people might look at. That's really cool. I didn't realize that. We do have a couple of questions here from the audience, so let's ask. Dusty asks, he came in late, can it alarm you when a stream of data flatlines?
Yes, we can. So you can set up, this is a fairly new feature in Clarifai. It's a combination of two things. So we have a feature called thresholds, where you can set a threshold. So let's say I wanted to be alerted if the consumption of power goes above, let's say it goes above 10 kilowatt hours. So I would say threshold, I'd set a color for it. Let's make it yellow. Let's call it high, and then above 10. So you'll get a line here. You will get a notification if we cross the line. And that's on a kind of an item that's just a raw signal.
Yeah, I was going to say that's pretty basic alarm. It hits that threshold, you'll get alarmed. I'm sure in some cases you'd want to have some parameters around that, where it's like if it does it for a certain period of time, or because I know, it's pretty basic stuff to have alarms. What I think a lot of times people end up with is too many alarms telling you too many things that don't mean much, and then they start to ignore the alarms altogether.
100% agree, which is why we typically don't set alarms on these raw values. So what you can do, which is really powerful, is you can combine calculations with alarms. So you can create your calculations, and your calculations can be they can get, let me just pull that up briefly here. So I'll take this calculation that I did. Also, I use some kind of query here to ask basically an if statement, like if it's above 50, then 1, otherwise 0. But if I press the button below here, also just we write extensive documentation, and it's not kind of gated behind some paywall, or you have to sign in. If you want to check out like all the things you can do in Clarifai, you can head over to our docs.clarifai.io, and we keep all the guides, all the instructions open.
Sweet.
You have a ton of functions that you can apply, and through using these, you can create kind of arbitrary calculations, which you can then feed into alerts. So instead of just alerting if something goes above 50, you can shape the data to extract what you want to know from it, and then trigger alerts only when kind of more complex scenarios happen.
Cool. Ali has a question.
So I used to be a process engineer, and now I do controls. But when I was process, I guess my question is, can you in Clarifai, if you have a Clarifai account, can you make any equations you want? Because that matters. Like normally, if as a process engineer, I want to create a condition to alert me, I have to have the guy like in the PLC create something. If I'm not the PLC programmer. But this is like a way for people that are not in the PLC to create their own alarms. Let's say the process guy doesn't want, or the controls guy or woman doesn't want to listen to you. You can create your own alarms. You can create your own alarms and prove to them basically that they have to create those in the PLC because you're right. So it's like, it's an ownership that you can take over. You can take over your own destiny basically with this data, is what I'm saying.
No, I 100% agree, and I really I've been there where we wanted to do something in a PLC and people just refuse to. Or and sometimes it's on a ship, it's hard, we have to wait, we can't do it while it's sailing. It's painful. And then the other part is, well, now we get our alerts, and then what if we made a mistake? And we realized 2 weeks in, and now all the historical data for the last 2 weeks, that's broken, and from the past we have nothing. So when you set up a calculation in Clarify, so the bottom one here at home, I set up while talking to you. If I zoom out, you'll see here, by the way, that we were looking at data since May, and I can keep zooming out. As long as there's raw data here, we'll have the calculation. So it will run instantly on all your historical data. So if you wanted to test, like, if we had this alert, would it have triggered in these conditions that I'm interested in, you will know that immediately. As soon as you set up the calculation, you'll know that. You can use that, for example, on the top one here, I have consumption and price, but what if I wanted to know the cost? Well, I can just set up a calculation. That's just consumption multiplied by price, and I will get cost. And it won't be from today and onwards. It'll be for however long I have consumption and price for.
That's pretty cool.
That's a lot of power to give to people. It's really cool.
Flexible and usable. That shouldn't be surprising, but in our world, I feel like it is.
No, it's huge in terms of like giving everyone power over the data. No one has to listen, but you can create that data now and not have to fight. They can all ignore you if you want, but like you can create data now.
Yeah, or you can create the ones that matter to you and not bother everybody else with those things until they see, you have something to share or whatever. And different people have different views and different ways that they, different parts of the data matter to them, right? So they can all have their own views of the same raw data in Clarify, right? And then, even bring in the people from the other departments when it makes sense, but they're otherwise kind of left out of that. They don't need to be seeing this stuff, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Definitely kind of just wanted to pick up on two things there. One is that even without calculations, one thing that we see people doing with Clarify is as a tool to explain to their colleagues what they mean. So let's say you have a hunch, something happens before compressor failure happens. If you say, like, I have a gut feel that it happens on days when it's especially cold outside, that doesn't really do much. But as soon as you get the data up and you can customize your own timeline to tell that story, and then you can share it with a colleague and get some feedback, it's much easier to tell that story. And when you make successful timelines that provide value to more than just yourself, you can share it with your entire organization. So that's typically what we see. Our organization will have some timelines that are shared, which is where most of the communication happens. So you might have want to do production optimization. You might have want to do kind of event logging for the day. So a lot of times kind of shifts communicating between each other. So like, here are the things that happened during this shift. This is the reason we stopped this machinery. Here's why we didn't spend as much fuel as we thought we would, just to communicate to the next. And then you also see people having kind of their personal timelines that they use for where it's just them. They're just testing out some things.
Ali?
So let's say a company is convinced that they're going to buy Clarify. How does the pricing structure work so that, I guess, like, the people who aren't going to be, I guess, maybe not engineers, but like technicians or whatever, or people who want to make a point about the data, like, how does that work in terms of pricing? And then, like, I guess, how do you do like the accounts?
Yeah, because some engineering software is very restrictive. Like, you have to have a seat, and it's a very expensive seat. So I've been in organizations where they're like, you don't get a SolidWorks license because it's too expensive.
That's normally, they're just like turned away. They're like, you don't get to participate because we don't have licenses, or that's what I'm talking about. Exactly.
Or you don't use it full time. So there's, the return on investment to give you a seat is not there, right?
Yes.
That's a very common setup I've seen a lot. So first off, just to have people get started, we've made a free plan that we think is actually usable. And the whole point is that when it's engineers who have a thing that they want to test, or they want to see if our software is as good as we say it is, right? Does it make sense? We want to make it so that people can can set it up and start writing data to it. So if you create an account with us, you can immediately start writing data to it, and you can invite a couple of your colleagues. I think it's 3 on the free plan, and you just get started. You don't have to talk to anyone actually, and then you can upgrade to what we call a team plan, and there you basically you buy seats as you need them. They're not super expensive. We charge mostly for the kind of data that you transfer and store with us. And the whole idea for us is that we think you'll get a lot more value once you have your colleagues in. And we ideally want to see everyone in, right? We want the field tech who might only add a comment like once every 2 weeks. We want his comment to go into Clarify and not into a Post-it note or your email inbox or nowhere in most cases. Right. Like if we're being honest, like most things are just never logged. They just happen.
Well, and it's outside your normal workflow. You have to go through a lot of effort to make sure that somebody sees that note or whatever. And you got other things to do, better things to do. Your KPIs are not about how many times did you share the root cause of a problem with your colleagues. They're what was your uptime and how quickly did you resolve this and so on.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Just also say, because we target people in the field, we make this web app, which makes sense for people who's in office when you're in front of a computer, when you want to kind of dive deep. But if you want to check quickly what the temperature is on your motor or how much fuel you have left or what the airflow is through some kind of pump, you can do that on your phone. So we make mobile applications both for iOS and Android that gives you exactly the same functionality as on web, including the ability to comment and to communicate. And you'll literally get push notification when someone mentions you so that you can reply quickly, because we don't want to force people to stop what they're doing, put down their tools, go into an office, find a computer, log into it. Like, that doesn't work. Right.
Speaking of that, there are also like C-suite stakeholders and people like that. They generally don't want to touch these tools. They want a report presented to them or something. So we had a question. Julian or Julian, I've never seen it with an accent. So now I'm very interested to hear how I should be pronouncing this name. But how does Clarify generate a report that also includes the comments that you're currently mentioning, or not how it does?
Looks like Julian.
Yeah, we'll have to get acquainted via Zoom call sometime, so I know how to say that.
So that's a really good question. We ideally want to bring people kind of into our product. So what we've aimed for today is basically you can build different timelines with different levels of detail that you can use, and also membership in timelines controls which comment ends up in your feed. So in an ideal setup, at a management level, we want to point people to, I'll actually switch organization so it makes more sense, to my activity feed. We ideally want people to end up here, which is we want them to have kind of a feed more than a report, because it allows you to dig into the context of things. So if I read something here, or if I search for something that I find interesting, if you see something here that you want to follow up on, you click it. It doesn't just show you the text of it. It shows you all of it. So it shows me what context this comment was made in. It shows me the entire discussion. It shows me any tags I've set up to it.
Is there any kind of print option for a section of data?
So also really good question. Just to say on the report bit, this is an area that we've had some requests, and we are kind of looking at where to go with. So we have some customers who requested kind of weekly summaries and daily summaries for their managers. We've had requests for kind of more custom reporting tools. We are doing a prototype of an actual report generation with one of our customers at least in the next sometime during November. So we don't really have report generation today, and
the future I think won't have that.
Huh?
It's just kind of a way. The future won't have that, but this is kind of like a way to bridge the way we used to do things, right, with the future. And that's all that's going to be.
I think it's important to note, like, I love things that add value even incrementally. So like you said, you can get started with a couple of streams. You can get started with basic, if you don't have this easy access to your data, you can view it easily, right? That's a huge value step for some people that don't have access, right? And yes, it's less sexy than, complete industry 4.0 or, connectivity across the board or all those things, but that's a hugely valuable piece of step forward for a lot of manufacturers. And then the ability to build on that at their own pace, versus having to buy into some huge change management, transformational multi-year process. This is a great step for some people. And one of the things and I'm biased because I like working for startups and small companies that are iterating quickly and like building features. But I love working with smaller companies because you might see your feature that you're requesting implemented in 6 months versus maybe never, or 3 years from now, or whatever that is. So that's great to hear.
I hope we do a post at some point now, just showing kind of what the product looked like 6 months versus now, because you're absolutely right. Like we add things at a speed that is constantly increasing, which is that we're constantly building the product to be more useful based on feedback from our actual customers. So we're not kind of just hammering away building things for our own sake. We're building things to directly address very specific use cases with customers. And also just want to say that for kind of the industry 4.0 journey and just getting started, I think our tool has a lot of depth. You can get really far with it. It can do a lot of things. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to force you to take a major step in order to get to value. Yeah. We want to provide value kind of throughout your journey. So you can start off with something. You don't even have to use comments. You can start with just having your data sources available in one place. And then you can start to have access on it on your phone. And then you can bring in your colleagues. And then you can start with calculations. And then you can start with doing forecasting or pattern matching, and you can just build on layers on it, instead of us trying to sell you this giant digitalization package that will hopefully present something that you can look at in 18 months.
Yeah, Ali and I are huge fans of products and services that take into account the users as well as the upper management that's looking for the desired results from X implementation. Because it's often a very different conversation that's had between the people that are buying and selling a solution and the people that are required to use it for it to go properly. And one of our big soapbox things is like, involve your users early in these decisions so that they feel part of it. And this type of approach, the step-by-step approach, is perfect for that, because they can even inform, like just like your customers inform your product development roadmap internally, right? It basically, the users of this are the customers of the internal development of a capability like this at a manufacturer, and how they like to use the tool probably can dictate a lot about how they develop these things for themselves in-house. And I use develop, not quite, right? But you set this up based on your own use case. And it's the people that are using it that should tell you how to set it up for success, right? With communication and collaboration. So we have a few more questions. I want to make sure that we get to. I know we're kind of at 5 o'clock. I would love to try, we should wrap up soon. Ali and I are notorious for talking forever, going on forever. But while we have some of our guests here that have asked questions, I'd love to get to them. What is the polling rate? Can you set it?
Yeah, so we actually don't poll. We require that systems push data to us, and this just goes back all the way to how we work with other companies. So we work with other companies like Opto22 and Crosser and a bunch of others to be able to have all their systems push data into Clarify easily. And the point of that is that we don't think there's value in us selling our customers yet another box to move data. They already have Kep Server, or they have Crosser, or they have Litmus, or they have one of a bunch of products that are adapted to their specific needs in a specific industry or a use case, or they might have some special hardware requirements. Instead of us selling you another box where we will pull your systems, we make it very easy to push data from various systems into Clarify. So in terms of sample rate, we can store things with a precision of microseconds, which is usually more than anyone needs. You can set up basically whatever you want pushing data to Clarify, but it is in fact pushed to us.
Okay. So I love the self-service. You can get started on your own. You can go on the website. You can sign up for a free plan. You can try it. What if you need a hand getting it set up? Do you guys provide services or support when it comes to customers that want help figuring out how to get their data into Clarify, how to work with all their different systems, those sorts of things?
Absolutely. So the reason we have self-service is that so that engineers can play around with our system and get insight into it and actually see that it is, it's not a bunch of PowerPoint slides, it's an actual product on the other end, and they can test it out and see if it works for their case. But most of our customers do require or want, when you get into kind of specific use cases, they often do need a hand in figuring out what is the best approach, what software do work well with this, what is a good data science pipeline to run on top of Clarify. And we have, we started out doing consulting in this field. So let's just say that we have a team that knows a lot about Clarify, but also knows a lot about the industry. And we've all of us have spent a lot of time working customer cases. So talk to sales and we'll self-service if you want to test it out, but for sure reach out to our sales crew and they will guide you through the process.
And as a former sales engineer, as much as I love self-service, I like the idea of people being able to find information. I also am a huge proponent in sales engineers add value. They know their product and how it relates to industry better than anybody, because nobody else sits in that function all the time. And they go talk out to different customers. I mean, that is something that, as much as I'm a, web, I like to do things on the internet, like even a quote beam or developing a marketplace. It's not to replace that in-person interaction. There's just a time and a place for it, I guess, in my opinion. And I love that. We have another question here. Are you planning on doing any VFD, predictive or preventive maintenance applications monitoring, pump systems, for example?
Yes, absolutely. We are doing one with a customer. Now we're actually doing a few. We haven't found a way of kind of showcasing exactly how to do it yet. We're working on basically telling you guys how to do that with Clarify. But that is a type of case that we actually do work with in Clarify. So if you want to talk specifics, reach out to me after this, and I'll happily walk you through kind of how to do that. And that's also an area where we do assist customers in solving these kinds of cases.
Very cool. Thanks, Ruben. That's a great question. So it looks like Ali dropped off. Her connection's probably not great. We'll figure this out one day. But I'm just very grateful for all of you guys, our supporters, our audience. I'll call you our community. We're figuring this out as we go. And thanks for being here regardless. At this point, I think we're out of, we should probably end it. Any parting thoughts from you, Tor, about anything that I missed or you want people to know about Clarify? And then also, what are the different ways that they should be getting in touch with you or your team? Shamelessly promote yourself at this point, whatever way you want people to reach out to you.
So the easiest way to get in contact with us is to head on over to clarify.io. If you want to test it out yourself, you can press the sign up button and try it out for free. If you want to talk to one of our sales engineers, or in fact, if you want to talk to me, there is a button on our website that says book a demo. If you click that, you'll find my calendar right there, and you can book time. I love doing that. Just as a complete side note, I love doing kind of sales engineering myself, seeing customer cases, thinking about what a good solution is. I'll just add to what you said, Nikki. We're not trying to replace kind of sales engineering, because I think that definitely has a place. And those people get to see a lot of cases. So you build up an intuition for what kinds of solutions make sense for different kinds of problems. So if you're at all interested in learning more about Clarify or in talking specifics, press the book a demo button and we'll get in touch.
Nice. I also like we're gonna do this as well. I use the calendar link for all my scheduling. I shouldn't do this, but it blows my mind when people ask like, oh, what is that? When I ask them, hey, do you have a calendar link or you want me to send yours? It is hands down the best way to book a meeting nowadays. I don't want to, what's your availability on these days and these days? Like, let's cut out. We don't need to spend time on that back and forth. Let's automate the parts that, we really don't need a person to send 5 emails to schedule a meeting. Let's spend our time in the meeting, meeting each other, talking to each other, seeing if we're a good fit, both, on a personal and professional level and a technology level. Thank you so much, Ruben. I appreciate you being here. And he actually shared his email address for further discussion. So Tor, reach out if you'd like, or Ruben, go on the website, schedule a call. And our community, if any of you guys want to talk with Ruben about VFD, predictive preventive maintenance applications, sounds like he's interested in collaborating and discussing that right now. And as people watch this recording, add your stories or questions in the comments, and we'll try to come back to this occasionally. And maybe Tor can, come back and answer some questions in the comments, or his team, as people watch this later on. I know we have audiences all over the world, so we appreciate you guys. I know this is not a great time for everybody, but it's hard enough to get Ali and I scheduled in the same room at the same, or the same virtual room at the same time. So if we can get something on the calendar, this has been in the works for a long time. So I really appreciate you for coming on to it, for being so gracious and scheduling things with us and our continued delays and things like that. And then everybody for putting up with our technical difficulties. Thank you, and see you next time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye, guys.